You're live. Hello everyone, my name is Bruce Rain from Brankus Creations and thank you very much for joining. Please let me know if there are any issues with the picture or the sound. I'm talking about things like quality. I can't really do anything about this. That's just, have to accept that, sorry. This is a bit of an interesting one. I find myself in this situation quite a bit where I get computers that are sent to me and I go in and I do recapping and get the computers pretty much working, but I leave little tasks for a later date. I've got to fix that little thing and I've got to fix that little thing. And well, I've ended up in a situation where that pile of little things is kind of built up. So today I'm going to go to work my way through some of those kind of little extra tasks that I have to actually complete. So quick little hello to Jay is here, Steve is here, Trina is here, Scarlet Swordfish, Mike is here. Thank you for joining, Mike. Actually, thank you everyone for joining. Charlie is here. Hello, Charlie. So thank you everyone for joining. If you're watching this for the first time, please jump onto the chat and say hello. If I don't say hello back, it's not personal. It's just I missed the comment. But I do like to try and say hello to everyone who's watching. So let's have a look here. So so one of the first things that I wanted to do is, this is something that I mentioned that I wasn't going to do in a live stream, but it is something that I do actually have to do, so I'm going to do it, and that is I want to try and repair, hopefully not blowing up anything. I've got, I'll let you know what I actually have here on the table. I've got an SE30, I've got an LC475, I've got an LC520 and an LC550. So they're all, and of course I've got the old Quadra 700 there, which is always fills in any time if I have it. Okay, Scarlet Swordfish, tell us what you blew up. Right, so what I actually want to do, I worked on an LC475 in one of my earlier streams. Actually, I should do a quick little update for people who have watched some of my earlier streams. So the LC475 that I did, fired it up, had no sound. And so I went in and had a look. I actually took the sound chip off prematurely. I really shouldn't have. I should have followed a better sort of series of steps for diagnostics for that issue. But anyhow, I took the sound chip off, checked for damage traces. There was a little bit of ugliness there, cleaned a few things up, put the chip back on, still no sound. I then started doing the proper steps of diagnostics, and I put some headphones in to listen to see if there was any sound, and there was sound. Now, if you're getting sound out the headphones, you know the sound chip is working. It's creating sound. But if you're not getting it out the speakers, you then have to figure out, well, why, if I'm creating sound but it's not coming out of the speakers, why? Could be the speaker, obviously. Tested that, speaker was fine. As it turned out, it was a very small little mono amplifier chip. And it was cooked, and basically replaced that chip, and boom, away came the sound. So that was all done. Now, what else? There was also in my last stream a MacBook Pro 15-inch, and I found that it was one of the ones that had that GMUX chip that wasn't soldered on properly during manufacturing. An issue that Apple's well aware of, which kind of makes me laugh because apparently this computer went back to Apple like 4 times, every time it was the GMUX chip. So I've soldered that GMUX chip on properly. It was all good, and then of course I went to go fire it up, and it didn't start. Now the reason why it didn't start was totally my own fault, and that was that I was powering it from my little bench power supply that I have over here. And I had that set on 18 volts. That's the voltage you need for the 15-inch and 17-inch Macs, because they need a little bit of extra power. But I have created, let me just see if, I'm not sure if the side angle will capture this, but no, it doesn't. The side angle captures my desk. But anyhow, I have one of these, so let me just go back to here. I have one of these cables. It's like this. So this is a cable from a MagSafe charger. And that's the cable there. There's the MagSafe 2 plug. And then I have this connected to these little, what do I call them? Banana plugs or whatever, that I can then plug straight into my bench power supply to output some power to this. Now, the problem is that these cables themselves dictate how much voltage comes out of them. So even if I have this set on 18 volts, it's still only outputting, I think it's 16.5 or something like that. That's not enough power to kick off a 15-inch MacBook Pro unless the battery is connected as well. So back when I used to fix these Macs every day, I mean, I knew that. I remembered that stuff as just a normal thing, but I've just gone a bit rusty. And so I was just working, I wasn't getting a fan spin, and then I just suddenly remembered, hang on. And then sure enough, I connected it up to a genuine 18-volt Apple power supply, and boom, away she went perfectly. So anywho, that MacBook Pro 15 is fine. It's got some problems with the left speaker, but that's another story. Let's face it, that's just buy a new speaker and stick a new one in. So that one was a fairly straightforward sort of repair, just obviously fixing up the really lousy manufacturing job of the U8900G Mux chip. There's lots of information about that on YouTube, and that if you do a search for it, it's a very, very common fault with that computer. So yes, so I really should mention. Hang on, what was? Oh yeah, well I should also, of course, mention Jay's help during that live stream, and there was something that. Oh yes, and Jay was of course the person who told me to start checking out the speaker rather than when I was having problems with the sound. I thought the problem was on the logic board, and he was the one that started saying, you know, have you connected up the speaker? And it's like, yes, I have connected up the speaker. But then I thought, you know what? How about I take the speakers off the board and swap them around and see what happens? And sure enough, the problem followed the speaker. So, all right, so what I want to do is I've got this LC475 that I have recapped and fixed, and it's all working beautiful. It's clean and shiny and everyone's happy. But while I was inside it, I found this, which is a little piece of plastic. Let's see if we can get a little side view here, and we can even do a little bit of a zoom because we have these tools, so let's take advantage of them. All right? Look at that little piece of plastic there. I do apologize for the greenness of this image. I've still got to try and figure out why that is happening. But I've been playing around with the settings on the camera, but this image that comes out of it just always seems to be a bit green. Okay, so this is a broken piece of plastic. All of these Macs of a particular vintage have brittle plastic. It's interestingly enough, it's not all of them. So if you, for example, have a Macintosh Color Classic, okay, yeah, they end up with brittle plastic, but nowhere near as brittle as some of the ones that came out after them. So like the LC575, the 580, those sort of 640 by 480 LC compact Macs that weighed a ton. Who we got? Aaron, welcome to the stream. Oh, and Jesse is here as well. Hello, Jesse. And of course, I haven't said hello to Dana. Hello, Dana. Welcome to the stream. Do you use LED lighting that can create a green hue with a digital video for some reason? I am actually using a bunch of mixed light sources, and that's really the problem. Up here, I have some fluorescent, they're 5,000 degrees Kelvin, but they're fluorescent lights, and because they do green stuff. Then I've got this light here, which is an LED, and then I've got some orangey sort of fluorescence up there. So I've got a complete mix of light sources in here, and that's ultimately the problem. I need to kind of do something about that. Probably should replace those ones with 5,000 degrees Kelvin as well. But anyhow, anyone who doesn't know what 5,000 degrees Kelvin is, it's light sort of temperature. So the idea is that when you heat something up to 5,000 degrees Kelvin, which is in the Celsius scale, but it starts at absolute zero, I think. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Kelvin starts at absolute zero, and it's and then it goes up in the Celsius increments. And 5,000 degrees Kelvin is when you heat something to 5,000 degrees Kelvin, it emits a theoretically perfectly white light. You know, if it's a little bit, if the temperature's lower, it's redder. If it's higher, it's bluer. And that's when we used to do this in the print industry, when you were color correcting anything, if you were printing things out and checking to see that the color was right, you had to look at them under 5,000 degrees Kelvin light, because you needed to make sure that the light source wasn't shifting one way or the other and therefore impacting the way what you were looking at actually looked. So if you're looking at something under an orange light, it's going to have an impact on what you're looking at. So there we go. So that's the whole stories. Now, Mac Yak is here. Now, is that a... Oh, it could be Grudy. It could be GT. Mac Yak, please identify yourself. Because it could be me. Let's face it. Who knows? I don't think I have admin rights to that one, so it's probably not me. All right. Let's move some of the bits and pieces around here so I can get to what it is I want to work on. This here... For those I mentioned in one of my streams the other day, this is the power supply that I'm going to be using to power up my Quadra 900. That's another thing I might end up doing today, is replacing the wonky RAM slots on that. And then this is the LC475 in question, which is basically, this is just being held together with luck at the moment in terms of the way the plastic is. And then this is the top case of the pizza box, and here is where that little piece of plastic came from. And what I want to do is I want to have a crack at actually putting this piece of plastic back on. Might last, might not, we'll just see. So I'd love it if I could get rid of this metal. Let's see if I can bend it up a little bit. Oh, you can't see that, can you? Okay, so where are we here? Might have to zoom out a smidge here. That's a metric smidge, not an imperial smidge. There we go. Okay, so this is it here. I've got these little... This is all shielding, this metal stuff. It's, it's designed to keep any electromagnetic radiation or whatever from escaping the computer. And I hate shields. If it was up to me, I'd just remove them all. Oops. There goes some more plastic. Okay, I might have to fix that too. All right. Okay, so here... Oh, it's GT. Hello, GT. My apologies for getting in the way of the Unreal Tournament plans for tonight. I definitely want to do that again, but sort of when it comes to live streaming these days, I've got so much work on it, sort of has to either be Saturday or Sunday at my time, and this time it was Sunday. All right, so this is the little piece of plastic, and I want to have a go at gluing this on. Which I keep moving it out of camera. Oh no, useless. So I want to have a go at gluing this on here. Now, some of the best glues for sticking stuff like this on are things like JB Weld. I mean, they stick really well, but the downside to JB Weld, it takes like 24 hours to cure, and that's a little bit hard if you're trying to hold a little piece of plastic in a particular position. Okay, RF energy is kept inside and stops from interfering with other electronics required by the SCC in the US. What kind of glue are you using? Now that's the thing. What I'm actually going to use is called cyanoacrylate, which is also known as superglue. And you might look at it and you think, come on, superglue is not going to cut it. It's not going to do it. No way. What are you talking about, Bruce? You are crazy. But what I'm actually planning to do is do the bicarb of soda trick, which I've talked about in my earlier streams, and I'm just going to demonstrate it here. It's essentially a chemical reaction that goes on between cyanoacrylate and baking soda. And it can create an incredibly strong bond, but more importantly, you can actually create sort of like buttress support. So rather than just being in a situation where you're just gluing, because I mean, look how thin the surface area here is on this plastic. I've got very little room to actually stick this on. So this gives me the ability to actually kind of build up a bit of extra strength around it. Okay, so, and if it doesn't really work, I would use JB Weld. Yeah, well, that's the other thing is, of course, JB Weld, what you can do with this is what I have done in the past, is you can stick things on with super glue just to get that instant hold, to get it in position, and then use JB Weld to support it. But anyhow, what we're going to do is we're going to do this. It might, of course, be a complete and total waste of time, but we're going to do it anyway because, it's a live stream. That's what live streams are all about. All right, so we'll just zoom out a little bit here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just wondering whether I might be better off doing this under the microscope. I mean, it's pretty darn close up, but we'll just see. Oh, let's wait till the lighting adjusts there. So here is our break, our ugly break. Let's get that in focus. Like that. That's the break there. And so I want to get a little bit of, let's play around with the twiddle my knobs here. There we go, twiddle, twiddle. And I'm going to try and get this on and just hold it in place, and then we're going to use a little bit of baking soda to try and build up a bit of strength around it as well. So I can't really see any way of being able to film this particularly well, this first stage. So I've got super glue on my fingers already. That's great. I love that. So in theory, so around about here is the middle. Where is it? Back a bit. Yeah, about there is the middle. So let's go. Telephoto. Let's give it a try. Right, so I've got my trusty super glue here. And I'm getting it all over my fingers. So that's fun. And I'm just going to, well, I better put my zoomy glasses on. Okay, I've got that on there. I've got it everywhere else as well. Okay, let's get that off. Obviously, you need to work quite quickly with this stuff. And then I'm just going to plonk that down and hold that in position. And that is, of course, the really awesome thing about superglue, is just how fast it grabs. You know, there are so many things wrong with superglue, but that stuff is the fact that I can just get that holding in position. As I say, if I wanted to then go and hit it with a bit of JB Weld in the middle of it there, I could do that now, and that would the superglue would be holding that in position, and the JB Weld will give us the extra strength. So now I am going to zoom this around, and now we're going to do the second part, which is the bicarb soda bit. And so for that, we're going to jump onto the microscope, and let's see if we can get that in focus. I'm just trying to work out which part is the best part to focus in. Let's see, this is, yeah, that's kind of what I want us to see. I want us to see that crack there. It's not going to work, is it? It's not. There's no way that's going to work with the microscope. It's just too hard. So let's see if we can zoom in, and we'll zoom in as close as we can. That's as close as I can get. Let's see if we can make some room to there. So there are some definite space issues going on here. All right. So let's try that. There we go. That's not a bad view. That's, I think, about as good as I'm going to get. So, so it works great. Hello, Matthew Martin. Welcome to the stream. Hello, Fizbin. Haven't said hello to you. Okay, so I've got a little, what is this? A sort of like a paddle pop stick, you know. And I'm going to just grab some bicarb soda. It doesn't matter if you get a little bit more than you need here. I'm right in the bottom of the box here, so yeah, it's gone into little lumps. So I'm going to grab a lump, and then I'll just squeeze it out. I'm going to put it onto there, and then I'm going to move it into position. Just get this and push it into the corners. To anyone watching from Australia, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. If you're watching this stream, why aren't you with your mother? Maybe you can talk your mother into watching this with you. It's actually quite funny because obviously Mother's Day is a very heavily commercialized event, and so my mother, who is doesn't particularly like the commercial aspect of it, when I actually say to her, "Happy Mother's Day," she blows me a raspberry. So I still do it, but you know, I say Happy Mother's Day. She just goes because she doesn't like the whole idea. All right, so this is the next stage, and that is where we're going to add the super glue to the bicarb soda, and it's going to become this rock hard thing. Okay, so let's do that now. Here's my super glue. Now I've got, you can actually buy really thin stuff, not easily out here in Australia, but you can. This stuff is a bit thicker, so it takes a little longer to kind of permeate the super glue. And I've got a little bit extra there, so I might just add some more bicarb to that. Because if you add too much bicarb, you can just sort of get rid of it. You just blow it off. And of course, we're not talking about anything here which is particularly expensive or hard to get hold of or anything like that. Okay, so I'm just going to let that sit for a bit. It's probably all out of focus. It's all bright and flary. Sorry about that. Will that thickness interfere with the case closing all the way? That is something we will discover. I was wondering that very thing myself. Now, I suspect it'll be okay, but one of the really nice things about using bicarb soda for this is that it becomes like really, really solid. And you can end up actually grinding it. You know, if you get like a Dremel or something like that with a little grinder on it, you can, you know, grind it away if it's too thick. So, a larger case piece, the top cover of my Mac Portable has a large crack that separates in the middle. The whole thing with this is this looks really horrible and unsightly. Okay, I get that totally. I mean, look at it, it's disgusting. But here's the important thing. I'm just going to blow all this excess away now. Here's the really important thing. From this side, doesn't look too bad. Okay, there's a crack in it, but you don't see all of that ugly stuff. So the whole thing when you're doing this stuff is working out whether you can glue it in a way that means that it's not going to be visible from the outside. Can you glue it underneath? Can you provide that strength there? I still use JB Weld for a lot of this stuff. JB Weld's amazing stuff. Yep, that's right. You can sand it down, you can grind it down, you can do all that. So let's get rid of some of this now. And I'll just have a look at it. Oh, now I've got it all over me and it's awesome. Still, it's fairly benign stuff. Good for cleaning. So let's just have a look at how this looks under the microscope. Those areas where I have, wrong button, that button, where I have done the bicarb trick. So that's it there. And if I get, I'm just going to try and get that in focus. About there. If I get a pair of tweezers here, and this stuff is rock hard. Absolutely rock hard. And it happens so quickly as well. And that'll take a little bit of time to cure properly, but you know, it's pretty solid. So, and of course you can do it in layers as well. You can sort of put the glue on, put the bicarb, put the glue, put the bicarb, and you can actually build up quite large layers if you need to in certain areas. Now, how well this is going to hold, we'll see. And of course, keeping in mind, of course, that this section now might become the strongest part of this plastic, and it'll break somewhere else. I've had that happen before. So I'm applying a fair bit of pressure on that to bend it, and as you can see, it's not actually snapping. It's holding together in one piece. So we'll see. I'll, you know, sort of once I've let this sort of really get a lot stronger and cure until it's, you know, absolutely rock hard, I'm going to try putting it back on the computer, and we'll just see how it goes. So anyhow, it's you know, I mean, what I've just done here, as I said, there's lots of different demonstrations of it, but it is, it's just one of the options you have when it comes to, you know, gluing some of this brittle plastic. But it doesn't stop the plastic from being brittle. All it does is fix that break. You might find the next time you go stick it on, it snaps somewhere else. I have had that happen with, what was it? It was a power button or something on an LC or something like that. Basically visible when held together. Yeah, so you can give that a try. Okay, so anyhow, that was the first thing. That, you know, yippee. That was the first thing. And it looks, at a glance, it certainly looks better than it did before. We've now got two little tabs on there. I know we've got a little little hole. Is it there? Little tiny hole in the crack there. Might be able to fill that with something, but you know, it's all right. It's okay. It's not perfect, but it's okay. Okay, so that was the first little job that I wanted to do today. Do we have any questions about that particular process? I have heard that it also works with ground graphite. You can actually buy graphite. I think locksmiths use it for freeing up locks and stuff like that. They use graphite powder as a kind of lubricant for locks. And you can buy graphite powder, and apparently the super glue mixed with the graphite powder to also create a very solid bond. You know, so there are certain things that will react in that way, the same as bicarbonate soda. The graphite, I think, takes a little longer to dry, and I think it gets hotter during the process, but it will also do it. So that's that. Shaving the clips. Okay, so JJ Brubaker, welcome. Okay, so have you ever used acetone? I haven't. As an acetone for what, cleaning or something like that? I mean, obviously acetone is not very friendly with plastics, so I would never put any acetone on one of these Macs. So it would just, when you look at the Macs, they have that very fine kind of texture on them, incredibly fine little ripply texture from the, you know, sort of when they're made. It's hard to see it there, but they do have it. And if you try and clean them with acetone, you just take that off. It smooths out. Doesn't work. Bad. Acetone slurry. So if that was acceptable or frowned upon, which are you talking about? What I just did with the gluing? Probably frowned upon. The amplifier chip on the 475. That guy Chad, hello, welcome to the stream. I'm just going to jump across here and have a quick look and see how many people are currently watching. I have currently got 20 viewers, so thank you to all the 20 who have decided to join me today, tonight, depending on where you are. All right, so let's grab the LC475 from under here, and we'll have a quick squeeze at the chip that I was talking about. This is still in the board. Let's spin it around this way. It's still in the case there, so we're probably not going to be able to see this, but we'll just do it here now. I'm going to lift that up to hold it here. All right, so there's our friendly sound chip, and as I mentioned in the other stream, this sound chip is found on quite a few Macs. I'm pretty sure you'll find this on the Color Classic. You'll find it on the LC520, 550, I think 575. There are a whole stack, Classic 2, a whole stack using this sound chip. Let's have a quick look. I'm not cleaning as glue. I'm not even aware of acetone's adhesive properties. So what do you mix it with to make it sticky? Just out of curiosity. Acetone to melt the pieces back together. Yeah, I mean, sort of cyanoacrylate kind of does that as well. It definitely softens the area that it touches. That, you know, sort of helps the adhesion. Scarlett Salvage Dana and I were talking about shaving the inside latching bits of those tabs, so you don't risk breaking them again to get the top of cut. Yeah, that's it. I have thought about that as well, so that instead of having to click on it, just sort of flops on. If it was mine, I would have absolutely no issue with doing that at all. It's not mine, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I would think that that's, or even if you were to shave off some of that little plastic bit popping out so that it wasn't clipping on quite as hard, so stopping it from at least falling off, but making it much easier to remove. I think that's actually a good idea, but as I say, I would definitely be doing it. I would not be doing it to a customer's book. Okay, so yeah, so this has all been, when we looked at it last time, I don't think this one had been ultrasonic, and it has now been ultrasonic. I did have some problems just around here with a couple of ugly traces that I did clean up, and there were a couple of ugly ones under it. So this chip has been removed and then put back on. As it turns out, wasn't necessarily required. Now over here is the guy that we're talking about. That is the amplifier chip there, DA7025A. Now, if you do a search for DA7025A, you'll find spec sheets and stuff on it and stuff like that. And you can often find with little no-name brand, well, sorry, not no-name brand, little generic chips like this. So this is made by Philips, I think, by the look of it. I could be wrong. It's a little logo there. So you'll find that these sorts of chips, they're not specifically Apple's. See this one, copyright 1992 Apple. I have a lot of trouble finding this one other than getting it from other boards. Yeah, if you look at this this here, and if you do a search for DA7025A, you'll find spec sheets and stuff like that. And if you jump on like AliExpress or eBay, you may even find someone with new old stock of that sort of stuff. I've certainly done that with heaps of parts. I mean, I've got bits and pieces for SE30s floating around here, where I've just done a search for the code. They're old chips that discontinued. They're not making them anymore, but there are suppliers that have just got huge stock of them left over. And you buy them and away you go. So I actually rated this from another board, and that's mainly because I have so many kind of boards of that era. I think I took this off. I took it off another LC475 actually. I've got 2 spare LC475 boards. Both don't have a CPU. Nothing else wrong with them really, but they can't do anything without a CPU. And CPUs are incredibly expensive, and I don't have a case. It's not really the sort of computer I would spend too much time on. 475s and Quadra 605s, they're pretty readily available these days. So having a board and nothing else, I don't really have an overwhelming desire to kind of do something with them. I'm quite happy for those boards to become parts boards to bring other computers back to life. Okay, let's have a look here. So what's the component just to the left of the sound chip? I found one of those on my AEK2's circuit board. Just to the left of the sound chip. You talking about this thing here? This kind of thing with the thing on the thing, next to the thing. That guy there, just let me know. Let me just have a quick look. I think it's some form of filter or inductor or something like that. It's coded with an LP. Yeah, so I don't know if you have a look up for LP. I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure what that is, but where you find them behind like headphone sockets and stuff like that. So they are something to do with that. They're probably some form of shielding or protection or something like that. Because as I say, they always live with these like headphone sockets and stuff like that. So if there's someone out there with super electronic smarts, please let me know what that is, because I've often wondered the same thing. It's a thing. It's an LP record. There you go. 33 1/3. So I can tell you that these blue things are inductors. And I can tell you this big wide thing down there is a resistor. But anyhow, so that was basically it. That was the component, and the steps of diagnosing this were a matter of saying, okay, we're not getting sound, but we were getting sound through the headphones. So we know that the sound chip is generating the sound, but it's not being amplified, and that's why you would then look to the amplifier as kind of the next thing. Another thing that can sometimes happen is these are designed so that if you put headphones into the socket, it switches off the sound to the speaker. So it's got a little switch that says, okay, if we're going out to the headphones, we shouldn't be going to the speaker as well. So when it detects when there's a headphone plugged in there. And there's always the danger that that little switch is not working, or it's stuck on, or there's a problem with the socket itself that makes the computer think that there's headphones plugged in even when there aren't. And then obviously you don't get any sound out of the speaker. So that's another step in the diagnostics you can have. So, yeah, so anyhow, that was a relatively easy one. It's a nice little, it's only 8 pins, it's pretty easy to swap over. So I will move along unless anyone has any further questions about that. About the little amplifier there, the Wii amplifier. Let me just put the lid on, or at least sort of put the lid on, because I do not want to, I don't want to damage my work, my handiwork. So let's just go here to that one. There we go. So what do you reckon? Should I risk it? Should I risk actually pushing it down and going click? and in danger of that going. It's not going down. Well, that's probably a good thing. It's probably not going down because all of the plastic that I've built up there, which I might have to shave down. But anyhow, that's no, that's definitely not it. Oh, I know why it's not going down. It's got nothing to clip onto. So okay, so that's where it should be clipping onto. So anyhow, this is now what we refer to as an aesthetic repair, not a functional one. So, okay. Okay, there out she goes. There we go. Oh, there we go. All right. So, what have we got here? It's a filter choke. Thank you. I knew Mike would know. And it keeps the RF noise out of the sound circuit. I thought it would be something like that. So there we go. It's always good to have smart people on the stream. Hello, Dana. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining. I had a tab break from putting the case on, always from taking it off. Yes, this is true. Okay, what might it be doing on a keyboard? What might it be doing on a keyboard? Okay. Oh, that's it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's go. Let's go. Iced Vovo, anyone? Next thing we need to do is we need to look at a Macintosh SE30. I did a Macintosh SE30 recap the other day. I've got to move this out of the way and try and get a bit of light here and move the next step. And after recapping it and fixing it, getting it all working and fixing some, what do you call those things? Some traces and stuff. What am I going to do with all these? I'm going to move these. So there's a Quadra 700. There's a floppy drive bit of it. There's a speaker with some terrible rust. This wire that's come out of the speaker, this is from inside this Quadra 700. This wire is actually rusted all the way through underneath the rubber there. It's gone all the way under there. So this wire is absolutely, completely, and totally shot. Don't know if the speaker works. We'll see. We'll find out if I can ever get this computer working. So this is the Quadra 700 that I've been playing with. Hasn't that been fun? That I would like to try and get fixed at some stage. This has now been fully ultrasonically cleaned. Before I only cleaned this side, but I've now cleaned the whole thing. So let's just move that out of the way. This is a speaker out of my Macintosh 2 Ci that I've been using temporarily to check and see if it goes bong. Right, so let's just keep piling stuff up here. What else have we got here? Oh, this is going to turn into a Mac 84 stream where I just go through and look at all my stuff. This is a 610 board, which is dead. As you can see, it's missing a CPU and the socket. So this one, I broke it a long time ago, a very long time ago. It's one of my very early recapping jobs. It wasn't the recapping that broke it. Something else I did broke it. But, you know, we all go through... We all go through these issues. We make mistakes in the early days. That's why you should always practice on things you don't care about and not 610s. Now, on the bright side, I have another 610 and a spare CPU. And so I am going to have a 610, even though this one is dead. And then this is the board we're looking at here. Oh, this is a Macintosh 2 SI. That has suffered, it's been cleaned, but it suffered from battery damage. That's why there's not a lot of things on it. All right, so let's just keep piling these up. There we go. Until we get to our SE30. Just going to move this out of the way without accidentally, like, cancelling the stream or something like that. They're not Arnolds. They're Arnolds. So, there is a bit of a thing with some of the Maciac guys that when we get together and chat on Discord and whatnot, we're constantly impersonating Arnold. Not very well. Okay, so Vovo. Yes, so this is an iced Vovo. This is an Australian, well, what we would refer to as a biscuit, but what Americans would call a cookie. And it's... you know, little bits of icing and then a little bit of jam in the middle and some coconut on top. Yummy. providing sustenance. Right. So, I better zoom out here because we can't see anything. Right. Let's have a quick look here. Let's have a mini food review of an iced flavour. Okay. This is what they look like. They didn't used to look like this. They used to look better. The reason why I don't like them now as much as they used to be is they used to have 3 little mounds of stuff. They were it's very bright, sorry. It's flaring out. I've got it on auto. This is pink here with coconut on it. And there used to be 3 little mounds that you could actually make them out to be little mounds. A little mound of icing, or frosting as you guys call it, a little mound of jam, and then another little mound there. But now they're all flat. And the biscuits kind of taste a bit stale. Not what they used to be. Tastes right though. Right. This SE30, given to me by a client, I did recap this in a live stream. And in this particular one, we had some trace repair that we had to do because there was quite a bit of trace damage. But it did work. It has been fixed and everyone is happy. Let's grab a paper towel because I'm going to put this on its face. When I'm pulling these apart from the fact that it makes the camera wobble, okay, there we go. I always do it pretty much the same way. I put one hand here with my kind of nails under there, one hand here nice and flat, getting a good sort of sticky purchase to the side of it, and then I just pull them apart. So it's one of the reasons why I actually find it so frustrating when I'm watching other people pull them apart. Not mentioning any names, but I watch other people pulling them apart and really struggling with it. I was like, oh, frustrating. Now, come back to the microphone. It is time, for disclaimers. Very, very important. What I am going to do in this stream is unbelievably dangerous and stupid, and if you do it, you're a fool. It's bad for you. It could kill you. It could kill your Mac. So I'm demonstrating a process that I do not condone. I do not recommend anyone do this, but I'm going to demonstrate it anyway. All right, so let's get the board into the computer. This one doesn't have a hard drive or even a hard drive bracket. The owner has asked if I have a bracket floating around somewhere. I'm not sure I do, but I will have a look. It's the same as the SE. I've got floppy brackets, I think, but I don't think I have hard drive brackets. But I'll have a look. I'll see. Might get lucky. In the olden days, I would have had heaps, but, you know, I did a purge of old computer equipment a long time ago, and I've regretted it ever since. Okay, so connecting up the sound, and then what do? That's right, I connect the power next. If you were dealing with an SE, you'd do the power once the board was in there, but an SE30, I find it easier to put the power in while the board's still out. Then we put that in there to one side, get these little tabs matching up on the other side. Come on. There we go, just like that. And then slide that down until that's in. So that's all looking good. Now, I really don't need to connect anything else up for what I'm about to do. So, and what I am about to do is I'm going to adjust the position of the screen. So, we have the ability to control some geometry of the display, and those controls are here. We have the ability to change the width. That's height. We have the ability to change the height. Oh, look at me, I should be zooming. I've still got coconut in my mouth, sorry. We have the ability to change the height. We have the ability to change the width, which you can't see, it's out of zoom, just there, width. And then obviously we can do the cutoff, and then we can do focus. Now, if you're ever wondering what the cutoff is, it's sort of like setting the brightness of the black. So if you accept that when you have a pixel off or on, and if it's on, you're seeing white, and if it's off, you're seeing black. And the cutoff is setting up that black to be black. If you have the cutoff turn up too high, you know, what you might actually see is even when the screen is completely black, you'll see the edges here, and then you'll see the inside is sort of slightly illuminated. So that means your cutoff is too high. So your cutoff should be making it so that you're setting it so that the black is the same color as the areas that don't have the little phosphor gun touching it. So, oh, hello, Oz RetroComp. Now, what are we looking at? Yes, morning, afternoon, evening, all. Yes, indeed, everyone. Disclaimers. You would walk 500 miles, you would walk 500 more. Aha! The disclaimers, I get it. Let's discharge a CRT now. I don't actually need to discharge a CRT because it's been off for a really long time. It hasn't been switched on in ages. So I'm not going to be discharging it. But more importantly, I'm going to be putting my hands in here while it's on. So that's kind of where discharging becomes kind of moot anyway. Now, okay. So let's do this, shall we? Let's just zoom out a little bit here so we can see. And can I move this forward a little bit? And we'll first of all demonstrate what the issue is, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to demonstrate how to adjust not just the width and the height, but the position of the image inside this CRT. And this is where it all gets a little bit freaking dangerous. So once again, disclaimer, don't be doing this. Look at the terrible burn-in on this. See that? You can see that dark line there. That's the burn-in on the CRT. No screensaver used on this one. No, sir. All right. Let's... come on, get in. There we go. Right, so once again, I'm going to be connecting 240 of the finest Australian AC volts. I'll plug this in. You know what would be really funny after recapping this? Wouldn't it be funny if this didn't work anymore? Wouldn't that? Thankfully, that's not an issue. Right. I was once bitten by an SE30 that had been unplugged for a day. It hurt a lot. Yeah, this has actually been unplugged for quite a lot longer than that. So I'm not saying that discharging it isn't a good idea just for the sake of precaution. For those who may not have seen it, if you go onto my channel, there is a video on discharging a CRT the way Apple tell you to do it. So if you have an issue with the way I do it in that video, take it up with Apple, not with me. Sorry, I've just realized I'm obscuring my microphone here. There we go. All right. So, yeah, there's just no harm in being extra careful. So being a little bit cautious. All right, so it bombed. Now, one of the things that I say in the videos, precautions, jewelry comes off. It's my wedding ring. It's for my own safety. I'm not saying anything about my relationship. Happily married. Taking off my Apple Watch. For those who may not recognize it as an Apple Watch because I've got it in this big hard case. It's an essential thing for me because I smack watches around like you wouldn't believe. I just walk into things and whack my arm, and so I have this little hard case around it. Protects it very well. I'm very happy with this one. No, they're not paying me. So let's put that there. So now my hands are nude, as we can see. And then the other thing is generally to work with one hand behind your back so that you only ever put one hand into the computer at a time. So, send nude. The top adjustable control on the analog board broken, the inner part shattered. As if with that top adjustable control on the analog board broken, the inner part shattered. So that inner part is actually it's just a piece of ferrite. A little piece of ferrite metal with a sort of a thread on the outside that you spin around. And that component would be replaceable. Is that an easy to find replaceable piece? I don't know. I assume that they have different strengths, the different ratings and stuff like that. I would think the safest thing to do would be to find one off a board. But I think you'll find that they're probably the same on all vintage boards. Just bear with me 1 second while I hop up here to my box of bits. Box of bits. Gotta be careful here because I'm surrounded by live electricity. Okay, so that's a classic 2 analog board, but it doesn't appear to have one of those on there. This is a Mac Plus analog board, and it has one right there. So this is the part you're talking about, I assume. Now, just based on a lot of the similarities with these boards and the fact that they're all the same CRT, I would think that you would be able to use one of these off another board, like a Plus, an SE, SE30, all of those I would imagine would be the same. Can't say it with complete certainty, but I'm pretty sure they are. So yes, you would be able to take I would think you'd be able to take one of those off another analog board. Buying a new one, I couldn't tell you. They could be around, but I have never ever had that issue, so I've never had to. So I am of little or no use to you there. I would give you this one, but I don't think we're in the same country. Okay. Right, okay, here we go. Now, what I would always say about discharging is, if you are someone who is not wanting to do it, you're scared of doing it, I don't want to ever be in a situation where I kind of bully you into doing it with my video, going, come on, If it's something that worries you, don't do it. Really don't. Just leave the computer off for a while until you know it discharges. It's completely discharged. I think there have been a few people that have said they've been zapped by a 9-inch CRT and it didn't kill them. So, it's not something you necessarily want to take a chance at, but the zapping it, though I'm sure would be very painful, may not actually be fatal. But, let's face it, you don't want to chance it. You don't want to risk it. But, by all means, watch the discharging video to see whether you feel that it might provide you with the confidence, but don't feel pressured at all. You do it if you feel comfortable about it. The first time I discharged something, I was so freaked out about it. Pulse was racing and that, and I made myself this discharging rod, which is the most spectacular thing you've ever seen in your life. I built it out of like this wooden broom handle thing, and then I built this little bleeder resistor into it, and it was huge. It was a great big long thing, so I could kind of stand back and poke it in there, and it was just overkill. This is my discharging tool. Yep, I'm going to grab it. Hey, hopefully without falling over. This is the one that I use now, and it is basically just an old screwdriver with a great big crocodile clip on the end there that I can just clip onto some ground somewhere, or ground of the computer itself, and discharge it. But anyhow, watch the video. Don't listen to anything I say in this particular stream about it, because I'm not providing enough info. Right. When the SE30 got me, felt like I skipped consciousness for a few seconds. Okay, so it's certainly not an experience you recommend then? Yeah, it would be weird if someone said they got zapped and it did kill them. It would, wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay, alright. Now, okay, well, there's enough silliness going on here. Silliness, I'll tell you. Won't stand for it. Right, so I'm going to spin this around very, very carefully. I'm going to show you what we're going to be focusing on here. Come on. Come on. Spin. Spin. It's not spinning very well, is it? Okay. What we are going to be focusing on today, and I can zoom in a little bit. It's going to get out of picture in a second. We're going to be focusing on trusty toothbrush. I don't use this for cleaning my teeth, just sort of letting you know. This is something that I use for cleaning flux off circuit boards. So this has never been used for cleaning teeth, will never be used for cleaning teeth, just in case there was any doubt about that. What we need to look at are these little things here. There and there. What you basically have is you have two little metal cuffs. So that's a little ring. I wish I could get closer. Let me see if I can get closer while staying in camera. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer here. There we go. Alright. Once again, it's still up here, but let's just move this ground wire. It's a ground bar, by the way. Ground bar. Alright. So this there and this here. And that little blue stuff there is kind of like a thread locker type thing, which stops these from moving. And these, that's a little handle, which is then a little ring. So this thing is shaped like a kind of like a circle with a little handle coming off the side, and there are two of them, that one there and that one there. And what happens is one of them controls the direction kind of diagonally one way, and one of them controls the direction diagonally the other way. So you have to fiddle around with the two of them to get the thing centered. So I know the fan's right there. The fan's there. I mean, I've got a bit of limited space here. Maybe I should lift the camera up a little bit. Excuse me. While I lift the camera up a little bit. It's going to wobble like crazy. There we go. Here we go. All right. Now I can actually move this back a little bit and show that. More telephotoing. There we go. That's a nice dusty view. So incidentally, just so that people know, this 9-inch CRT is basically the same on all of those Macs. We're talking about 128K, 512K, 512KE, plus SE, SE30, SE FD HD, Classic 2, have I missed any? Probably even the Lisa. And these CRTs are interchangeable. You can actually take one out of one Mac and put them in the other. But what needs to be swapped over is this thing here, which is the yoke, which is this thing here with this sort of red coily stuff around it. That whole thing. Why am I pointing with tweezers, you idiot? Let's point with a wooden stick. So this this thing here, there's this screw here that you would undo because that's holding it on. You undo that, and then this whole, it's like a cuff yoke thing comes off, and then you can then put that on. You can use the different one for the different computers, because they are all different from those computers. I mean, some are the same. The SE ones, I think most of them are the same. The Classic and Classic 2 one, I think they're largely the same. Some models, I think there's some variation. But yeah, you basically can take this off and then use that CRT in another computer. Of course, precautions, voltage, depth, all that sort of kind of stuff. So what we're going to be doing with this is we're going to be very, very carefully. The first thing we need to do is we need to break this thread locker stuff, because it's stopping those from moving. So you need to kind of apply a little bit of pressure until, there we go, that's kind of broken away. It looks like it was probably already broken away anyway. So we're spinning these around is what we're going to be doing. We need to spin one without spinning the other, and then we spin that one there, and that's basically what we're going to be doing for centering. Now, I can't show you the front and back at the same time, but what I can do is I can show you the back, and then I'll go in and I'll show you the front, and you know that this is what I'm doing. Now, you can see the danger inherent here, can't you? You know, this is really not something you want to be doing, you know, sort of lightly, or, you know, sort of you need to be super, super careful. So this is one of the reasons why I essentially say, don't do this. Take a listen to your Uncle Brucey. He says don't do it. Okay, so that is basically what we need to do. And then once it's locked into place, we then need to provide some sort of thread locker to stop that from moving again, because we want that to try and stay in place. So, so there is absolutely no way you can do this while the computer is off, because you have to see what you're doing. You have to be getting feedback and seeing what's happening on the screen while you're making this change. Simple as that. Cannot be done unless the computer is on. And that's one of the reasons why I provide that disclaimer, and I say it again. Really, really dangerous stuff. This is not something that you want to be, it's really not something you should be doing at all. But I'm just demonstrating it because people say, they say, okay, well, look, I can adjust the width and height. How do I move the position of it? This is how you do it. If you're worried about doing it, you know, get a professional to do it, or an idiot like me. It's as simple as that. So, if you use the wrong yoke, you can end up with egg on your face. Boom, boom. Okay. Okay, so this thing is disgusting on the inside. Are you going to clean it up? Yes, I absolutely am. What I'm going to be doing is I've got an air compressor in my workshop here with a little fine sort of air nozzle thingy. that blows out incredibly powerful. It's like, you know, using the little spray cans of air, but it's just way more powerful. And I'll be taking this outside and blowing all the dust out of it, because at the moment it's caked. Okay, so just going to do a quick recap here, sitting on around about 20 odd viewers. So once again, thank you everyone for spending your, if you're in the US, Saturday night with me. If you are in Australia, your what is it, Sunday lunchtime-ish? Speaking of which, I'm hungry. Okay, so Sad Mac 356, I probably wouldn't be messing with it, which is perfectly sensible. Okay, once you adjust the deflection, hot glue, he says. Hot glue, he says. Well, it's interesting. I'm not going to use hot glue, but hot glue would be perfectly good. I'm going to be using this stuff here, which looks a lot like nail polish, but isn't. This is actually an aerobic thread locker. Aerobic. Yeah, aerobic. Meaning it uses air. So here's a really important thing about thread lockers. Thread lockers you actually put onto a screw it in, and then it locks it tight. So this is some thread locker here, Loctite thread locker. Yep. And you basically put that onto the screw, you screw it in, and that holds that screw, it stops it from falling out. Now the problem with this stuff is it is anaerobic, meaning that it works when it's deprived of air. So you put it in a screw, you screw it in, and once it's been deprived of air inside the screw, this stuff will then lock tight. If you put this outside where it's exposed to air, it will never dry. It will just kind of disappear. It just kind of, it leaves this coloured smear behind. So that is, that's, you know, sort of, that's like a thread locker. Now this, on the other hand, which, as I say, it looks a lot like nail polish, but this is stuff here that you can paint on and will work as a thread locker, but it will work without, it'll work exposed to the air. And so this will go hard, this will hold those things in place, and this is what I'm going to use. This is also can be used as a tamper evidence seal. So if you want to put a screw in and you want to see if someone's actually undone it and messed with it, you can put this on, because obviously when they undo it, this stuff cracks, and then you can see whether they've actually been messing with it. So that's what I'm going to use for this stuff here, nail polish. But I'm going to go in and get this right. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to mess with it a little bit. Mess with. And then I'm going to go around and I'll show you what's actually happening as I play with these. So let's spin him around again. I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit. Got a high-pitched noise coming through. Sorry. Is it? How's it now? Is it as I move this around? I have to. One of the things I'm wanting to, as much as possible. Oh, look at this! Look at that flickering. Excuse me while I deal with this flickering. The screen will go a little bit dark for a moment. Bear with me a minute. Okay. Told you to go dark. How dark is it? I'll have to force it to... oh, it's not too bad. Oh, that's alright. Okay. Now, for those of you who... oh, it's still slightly flickery, but for those of you who might be wondering what is going on there, I have set my camera to synchronize with the refresh rate of this display so that we don't get any flicker. Something that's really, really handy when working with these old Macs, because they run at such a slow refresh rate. But that generally when you run those, when you film them with cameras, they flicker like blah, blah, blah. So I run this at, I've got the camera now synchronized. It's around about sort of 59 point something frames a second or something. And so it's synchronizing with this, and then we're not getting the flicker. Makes it a little bit more enjoyable to watch. So I am going to do some twiddling here to make some adjustments to the height of this, because at the moment it's a little bit squished down. Likely coming from the Mac. Yeah, it probably was the Mac, so sorry about that, about the noise. Back to as light as normal now, that's good. All right, so now whenever you're doing adjustments to displays, you should be using these TV adjustment tools. You can generally buy them on eBay and Amazon and stuff like that, and they're these plastic tools. Now, the reason why they're plastic is because when you're making adjustments, you are shoving these things often into, as we were talking about before, little ferrite cores, and a little core of ferrite as you spin it around. And when you put something metal into that ferrite, you actually change the density of it, and you actually make adjustments just by putting the tool in there. So you need these plastic ones that then don't impact on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the height and the width. So, and not to mention the fact, because they're plastic, they're also not conductive. So if you're poking them into somewhere a bit dangerous, you're not likely to get zapped. So that's too big, so we have to use that. This is the one I want. Little plastic screwdriver thingy. So I want to adjust the height here. So I'm going to pop that into this little hole on the side. Nothing particularly tricky about that. And I'm just going to adjust the height. Now look at that burn in. See that burn in there? And as I'm moving it, I'm moving that screen away from that burn in. So I'm going to fill that. It's sometimes tempting to just make this whole thing fill the screen, but you don't actually want to do that. These were designed to be WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. They were meant to be exactly 72 pixels per inch, which is the same size as a point, which is a unit of measure in sort of the type industry. And there are 72 points in an inch. And these were designed to be exact size, so that when this displays something, which is, I don't know, 2 inches by 2 inches, it will appear on this screen at 2 inches by 2 inches. And so this is why you want to try and adjust these as much as possible to the exact dimensions. Now, I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but you can work it out. It's 512 by 384, so 512 divided by 72, that'll tell you how many inches across it should be. 384 divided by 72 will tell you how many inches high it should be. And you should really be ultimately using a ruler to measure that. So that's that. Now, but now I can see the fan blade spinning. Oh, can you? Oh dear. What if I speed the fan blades up? The fan blades are going a bit faster now. How's that? 7.111 across. I'm glad someone has a calculator there. So that's basically how they work in terms of the WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. So that's ultimately what you should be doing. Should be grabbing a ruler and measure that. And then, of course, the other really important thing is to make sure that it's symmetrical. If you have something that's meant to be a square and it's displaying as a rectangle, or it's meant to be a circle and it's displaying as a egg, what do they call them? Shape that's not a circle but round. Then you know that you need to make sure that the height and the width are correctly proportioned. Okay, so this is what we have. We basically have, now, another really important thing there is one other adjustment, which can be done. I generally don't do it. It can be done, but I don't like doing it, and that is that if this is at an angle. And the only way you can correct that angle is by actually undoing that screw on that yoke and turning the yoke. That turning that yoke will turn the image and change the angle there. Ellipse, that's the word I was looking for. I've never seen one that's really, really off angle, but it would want to be really off angle before I would go in and do that. I'm not a big fan because, that neck is glass. You're having to undo that, that screw and turn it and screw it back up again. I'm just so worried about breaking. I hate glass. Glass breaks all the time. I don't like it. Oval, ellipse. Look, we've got lots of wonderful words for what I was looking for. That's great. That guy, Chad. Have I said hello to you? Hello, that guy, Chad. Okay, so Nate, hello. I hate it when that happens to my brain. All right. Now, as I was demonstrating before, I am now going to twiddle with these little flat metal things to make this appear centered in the display. A little bit hard for me to do because I'm not looking at it centered. Okay, so I can see it's over that way quite a bit. So now, one hand in, the other hand out. Behind my back, I certainly don't want my hand anywhere near a ground. A ground. I don't want it anywhere near a ground because I don't want anything that hits my hand, this hand, to run across my body and then come out the other hand, because it means the electricity will be running right across my chest. So, hand behind the back. I've got rubber-soled shoes on, so I am insulated. So in theory, electricity, which always likes to take the shortest route possible, won't travel through my body if I do happen to get zapped with anything. But anyhow, I'm now going to put this, grab one of these little tabs that I was doing before, and as I turn this, you'll see it moves diagonally that way, like that. And then if I turn the other one, it goes diagonally that way. So it's a matter of just twiddling those to make sure you get it centered horizontally and vertically. It's a little bit high at the moment, so I need to be moving it down. That's that way. And that one, I don't like where this one is positioned. It looks pretty darn centered to me. I'll tell you what, I've seen worse. Okay, is everyone happy with that? I mean, I know it's a little bit hard because of the angle of the camera there. If I turn this that way, there we go, looks a bit better, doesn't it? Maybe a little bit this that way, tiny smidge, but I'll tell you what, if it was mine, I'd be happy. So, don't want to be standing there barefoot either, that's exactly right. So, alright, so, you know, let's get some feedback. What do you think? Is this good? Does it look alright? Is it centered enough? Is it good enough for a customer? It looks alright to me. Scarlet Swordfish, like it. I'm heading out for the night. Good luck on the rest of your project, Bruce. Thank you, Charlie. Have a good evening. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Alright, so I'll just quickly have a look at the focus. Oh god, I need my better glasses for that. Focus doesn't look too bad, but let's just have a twiddle. Focus. 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 The trick with the focus is that it's almost impossible to get it in focus in the middle and on the edges. So you kind of just have to try and find a bit of middle ground. This might be easier with a picture. SCSI to SD. Okay, it's got a boot. What do you reckon? It may not boot because it doesn't have an internal hard drive, so I'm concerned about the termination. We'll just see. I'm going to press the reset button. Oops, press the programmer's interrupt. Sorry. Finish my ice vaso. Yeah, termination. Piffle. Piffle! Okay, so this is a problem. SCSI. A lot of people know this about SCSI, but SCSI basically, the way it works, you need termination on the first and last device in the chain. Now, at the moment, I've only got one device. Some of the computers, some of them, you just connect one terminated device and it works. On these older Macs, you need two devices. You need two, devices terminated in there. The other one doesn't even need to be on. It just needs to be terminated. So I did this the other day. There's no SCSI cable in this either. So this could be a little bit difficult, a little bit tricky. Steve, welcome to the stream. In between movie break, what movie are you watching, Steve? And what do you think of it so far? Okay. I'm just thinking about whether I can get this to start up. Because someone did mention Larry Pina's test pattern generator, designed for the 9-inch Macs. It came with his book on a floppy disk, which I have. I have the book. God knows where the floppy disk is. It's probably in a box somewhere. But, yeah, so, and in his, in that, there was a little test pattern generator that comes and does little circles, and it does little stripes and things like that. It does a whole bunch of little displays that you can then use to adjust the geometry and stuff like that. So it's a great little tool. It's available on Macintosh Garden. It'll only work on these really old Macs. It's a very, very tiny little application. I mean, it's only a few K. You can stick it on a floppy disk with a system, you know, because it's so small. Showing my wife Star Wars Episode 1 for the first time with a comedy riff tracks commentary thing, the only way to watch that mess. Yeah, I like the pod race. Not much else. There's that little bubble-headed boy playing the part of Anakin Skywalker. And it was the movie that introduced the word midi-chlorians, which, you know, let's take something silly and make it sillier. Alright, so... tapping the analog board with the metal tool. This one, it's plastic. It's plastic. Okay, Scuzzy makes us go WTF. It does indeed. So, we go. Okay, yes. So, thank you, Jay, for posting the link to the to that thing. Oh, Mike, thank you very much for that. That's a what do you call those things again? The super chat. That's it. Thank you. Visit Mike's Mac Shack. So he wasn't going to wait for me to do it, was he? So yes, folks, everyone, don't forget to jump onto Mike's Mac Shack YouTube channel and have a look at some awesome stuff. I think, aren't you giving something away at the moment, Mike? Isn't there some sort of giveaway going on at the moment? I could be wrong. Lots of people are doing giveaways at the moment, so I'm getting them all confused. But if you are doing a giveaway, please throw the details into the chat, please. Okay. Pod Race was the only good thing about that movie. Yep, that's right. Yes. Oh, yeah. There we go. I did say that. An iBook G4 1 GHz model, lovingly owned by me and Mike. There you go. Don't forget, we are giving away a computer on Mac Yak Bruce LOL. I would not forget. There's no way. I would, of course, mention that in the stream, and that is that Mac Yak, and people who may have seen me on Mac Yak, we have a giveaway at the moment, and there is a you need to watch episode 69 from memory to find out the details of how you actually how you enter that giveaway, and you will have an opportunity to win a MacBook, one of the white MacBooks. I have bits of one up here that I can show you, so you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So anyhow, jump on, watch Mac Yak episode 69, get the details. Okay. All right. Right. Okay. Now I am getting very... Okay, so here is the thing. I'm getting very heavily distracted, and I apologize. It's going very, very slowly. Do I look to try and get this started up and open up the test pattern generator? If I can quickly find a hard drive and a SCSI cable, I will. So just give me a moment. That was fairly quickly. But the problem I have with this is a really short SCSI cable. I do have long ones around, but once again, I don't know where. And if I'm going to plug this in, I need to switch it off, of course. I do not want to die. That goes... Let's see, that goes there, like that. All right, let's give that a try, shall we? I'll do it very quickly. Going to unplug it from the power. Going to be super careful here because this is still charged. But I'm going to hopefully do this in a way that doesn't expose me to danger. And all I need to do, as I said, is just plug this in. I don't need to power it up or anything like that. Oh, Jay, thank you very much. Another super chat. Thank you. Oh, it's my lucky day today. Visit Mac842. Wait, I'm prompting the wrong. All right, okay. It's time for the promotions of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who may have seen me on Mac Yak might know that I do that show with a few other people. And those people are Steve, Mac84. Great content there, lots of vintage stuff, lots of live streams of recapping, what to do, what not to do, all that sort of stuff. So jump on and have a look. House of Moth. Jump onto his channel. He's got lots of great content there as well, even content that I have used for my own stuff. So there you go. And then who else have we got? So I've got Rudy's not here, so he doesn't get mentioned. Nuh-uh. GT is here, but he's moonlighting as Macyak today, so it's hard for me to then sort of say, hey, go and check out his channel, because he hasn't got it here. I can't get this in here. Just put your plugs in, guys. Put your plugs in. Plugs. Go for your life. I really don't want to break this. This is, yeah, the problem I have is this SCSI cable is just tiny. Look at it. It's just not long enough for me to do what I want to do. So I'm going to abandon this as a project. So basically I'm content with what I've done in terms of adjusting the display. I will probably go in and do the focus a little bit later on, but I'll need to, you know, probably, it'll take some time to try and find a SCSI cable tucked away somewhere. So essentially, I'm pretty pleased with the way this has all gone. I am going to remove the logic board, because I just realized when I was looking at it before, it has not yet been ultrasonically cleaned. There is a reason for that, and that was that at the time that I did this, I was out of ultrasonic cleaning liquid because there were COVID-related issues stopping me from getting a prompt delivery of my ultrasonic chemicals. So it didn't end up getting cleaned. So I am going to ultrasonically clean that later today, and then I'm going to clean this out with an air compressor as well. People should check out Mac Librarian. She just released a new video about Number Muncher, and as always, joined by her Mac Classic 2. It's interesting. I did actually subscribe to Mac Librarian because she had this, yeah, a little bit silly, but like a really well done, nicely polished video about something. Can't even remember what now. But she doesn't exactly release a lot of videos, does she? So if she released a new video, why didn't I get a notification? Why? Right, okay. Here am I talking about silly videos. Like I can talk. Right, so I just want to get this speaker cable out of the way, because I'm going to put the case back on without the logic board in it. And I don't want to lose the speaker cable by squishing it. And you know what I also had? I also had a... Oh, here it is. It's inside the case. This is the another one of these shields that I hate. Just hate them. Despise them. I understand the need for them, but I still don't like them. Okay. Right, so that's this one out of the way. Let's move to a view of my pretty face. Okay. Right, now, how long have we been going for? A long time. Hour and a half, something around about there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have a look at something. This might actually turn out to be a nothingness. One of my customers sent me a couple of logic boards. They sent me an LC520 and an LC550. For those who don't know those, hang on. Didn't find anything useful. Quantity. Macintosh Librarian. I find her videos extremely charming, and she's definitely knowledgeable. Yes, charming is a good word. Charming is definitely a good word. Okay. Do I need to send you some internal terms? If you want. Are you talking about the terms of your giveaway? Is that what we're referring to? I'm more than as I say, I'm more than happy for you to plug stuff here. I'm absolutely, totally happy with that. All right. Oh, I've got a treat to show you today as well. Have a look at this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wonder if I should get this with the. I'll get this with this side angle. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't stick the thread locker on that adjustment, so I'm gonna have to go do that in a little while. Okay, ready? Dun 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 dun. Dun dun. Dun dun dun. Now, this. Can anyone tell me what sort of board this is? Extra points if you can tell me which revision. Oh, the horror. Oh, the humanity. So, there we go. Dana, you're very close. You're on the right. You're in the right ballpark. But there is one identifying thing about this board that tells me it's not actually a classic, and that is the fact that it has RAM slots on it. No, not a color classic. Too small for a color classic. And it doesn't have the little connector thingy for plugging into the computer. Classic 2, Fizzbin wins the respect of his peers. Okay. I assume his. Fizzbin. Well, it's a fairly gender-neutral name, but I assume his. Okay, so this is, yes, it is a Macintosh Classic 2, and this is the Revision B version of the board. You can tell the two apart. The Revision A has 4 RAM chips going across here. 1, 2, 3, 4, running that way. And it has 13 surface mount electrolytic capacitors. This is the Revision B board, which has 2 ROM chips running in the opposite direction, and has 17 surface mount electrolytic capacitors. We love recapping this one. We do. So the main way you tell apart a Classic 1 from a Classic 2 is the fact that this one actually has RAM sims on it. You can actually install RAM on them. The Classic 1 had 1 megabyte mounted, actually soldered onto the board, and then it had an expansion card that you'd put into a slot similar to this, but not exactly the same. And it would have 1 megabyte on the board itself, and then 2 RAM slots, so you could stick another 2 on there. So the Macintosh Classic had a limit of 4 megabytes. This here is a Classic 2. This has a limit of 10 megabytes. 16-bit data path instead of the SE30's 32-bit data path, which made this rather interesting because this came out as the replacement to the SE30. When they discontinued the SE30, they replaced it with the Classic 2. And although you might think, well, they've both got a 16 megahertz 68030 CPU, so they must be the same. They weren't. The SE30 could be expanded up to 128 megabytes of RAM. This one could be expanded to 10. This one came out later, but can only go to 10 megabytes. And then, of course, this only had a 16-bit data path, so it was slow as well. Slower, about apparently 30% slower than the SE30, something like that. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But anyhow, regardless, this one's dead. I'm not even going to bother trying to fix this one. What I may end up using this for is perhaps using it to demonstrate the power of an ultrasonic cleaner, because I might get this and throw it in the ultrasonic cleaner. I'm tempted to actually cut this in half, because I've got 2 different types of ultrasonic chemical, and I'd like to test out the 2 different types. And I'd like to cut this in half and do half the board in one sort of set of chemicals and the other half in the other chemicals. So anyhow, we'll see what happens. But this is likely to be used for demonstration. But I'm not going to bother recapping. I'm not going to bother trying to repair it. And the reason is quite simple. I mean, okay, sure, I might be able to repair some of these traces, but let's just go in and have a look at this. This is our CPU right there. I'll spin it around this way. So there we go. 68030 16B, 16 megahertz, 68030. Now, when you look at these pins, when pins are in this sort of state, the moment I clean away some of this corrosion, yep, I also clean away the pins. There goes a pin. And when this comes out of the ultrasonic cleaner, all these pins will all be gone. Boom. Here's another one. Here's another one. There's just no point. There really is no point. I could spend days on that and still not be able to fix it. So yeah, that's a joy of that. Those sorts of that sort of battery leak damage, and that's obviously something I should mention. This is caused by a leaking battery backup. The battery has just leaked all its funk out onto there. I mean, this has got capacitor leakage as well. You can look here and see plenty of evidence of capacitor leakage with the corrosion around here. You know, no doubt about that. Definitely got capacitor related issues, but the battery was the killer on this one. And let that be a lesson to anyone who's thinking about buying one of these from someone who might say something along the lines of untested, new in box, untested. Yeah, it might look like that inside. Okay, so this has now basically just become a parts board. I will use this. Obviously, some of these components I could still use if I needed to. So this is just parts. I mean, even these connectors, these reset buttons. I've actually got a computer at the moment that's lost its reset buttons. These ones, these work. I can steal those, put them on something else. So, you know, always hang on to these boards, and always you can use them for practicing as well if you're, you know, trying out new methods and procedures. So let's just quickly talk about Matt's Tech. Hello, Matt. Hello, Danny. So how quickly do batteries leak when they go? Is it like they're okay for decades and then boom, in a few minutes they fuzz out their muck? Yeah, pretty much. I don't know the exact speed at which they fuzz out their muck, but once they start to leak, that leaking does happen quite quickly. Yeah. So anyhow. Some of them, it becomes fairly clear that they've kind of physically exploded because you get bits of dots of splatter on the board. So that, you know, it's an indication that that battery has actually gone poof and just spat stuff out onto the board. So that obviously can happen quite quickly. Right. I got a not working Color Classic for $60 US. And did you make it a working from not working? Oh, someone's cooking something. Oh, yummy, hungry. Okay. Right. Let us jump over to this view again, because what we're looking at here are... zoom out. What we're looking at are these LC variation boards. So I just want to give a quick little history about some of these LCs. So we have obviously the Color Classic, which started, it has a board like this with this little connector that you slot into the main computer. Then there was also the Color Classic 2, which was a slightly faster version, but still a 68030 chip. Now, then we also had things like the LC 520 and the 550. Now, these were the same board as the Color Classic, pretty much. I mean, well, certainly the Color Classic 2. So the same board as the Color Classic 2. But they just had a few little variations in them. I mean, I think even the code is the same. They've got a little board code here, which is 8200368A. Now, this is the LC 550. This is the LC 520. And they both have exactly the same board code here. And as I say, I think it's the same board code as a Color Classic 2, a computer that was never released here in Australia. Oh, someone's bipping me. And these were just variations of the 68030 computer. So these went into a larger case than the Color Classic. They were a 640 by 480 12, 13-inch screen from memory. Big heavy thing like the 575 and the 580 and that sort of thing. So it was a heavy case. So you know, these, as I say, were just essentially the same board, just going into a different case. Now, this is a really interesting one because this is the 520. And sorry, I'm just going to put this on. I've got my Mac Yak fellas are chatting away like crazy at the moment. Do not disturb. There we go. As they do. This here, if we zoom in, This is what I find really interesting. The LC520 was sold as a 20 megahertz 68030. And as you can see, this is a 16 megahertz. Now, the owner of this board told me that this originally had a sticker on it. So the sticker, I guess, on it had 20 megahertz. So now, as to whether this is actually a 20 megahertz chip that has been incorrectly labeled, or whether it's just a 16 megahertz chip they're overclocking to 20, which I think is the more likely option. I just found that quite interesting, that we're looking at a computer that was sold as a 20 megahertz machine with a 16 megahertz chip on it. Now, of course, this is the same speed, well, 16 megahertz was anyhow, the same speed as the original Color Classic, which of course was never the fastest computer out there. This one, on the other hand, is the 33 megahertz, which is the same speed as the SE30, Classic 2, that sort of thing. So anyhow, can you overclock a 520 into a 550? You maybe. I've never tried. I would imagine there's enough commonality on this board. You probably can. It's probably just a matter of changing the frequency of a clock chip. I'm just looking at the board now. That's for the real-time clock. This is an oscillator here. I'm just going to see what we can see. 9337. I don't know what that is. Let's have a look at the other one. Sorry, this thing keeps rolling forward. There we go. Lock that in. Oh, being gentle, people. This is not mine. 9402. See that that's an oscillator, but I don't know what those codes mean. So I'm sure if we were to look them up, we'd be able to find out what speed they're running at. Ooh, look at that corrosion. Juicy. Okay, so now LC520 25 megahertz. So that's I get them all mixed up. I mean, let's face it. I mean, I do not consider myself an authority on all LCs. There are so many of them. So that's a 16 megahertz being overclocked to a 25 apparently. LC from 25 to 33 is only resistor change. Yep. Oh, it's a resistor change. So there you go. So anyhow, look, I'm sure it is. We could probably compare these boards and find out what the difference is. I would guess it's probably sort of somewhere in this region here. I can have a look at these and see if I can find differences. But that might be a little bit boring to watch, so I won't do that. Even though I am doing it at the moment. So stop. I will stop. Now, little bit of history on these boards. They were sent to me by a customer who was saying they were having issues with the sound. Now, what's interesting is I've already tested one of these, and I wasn't getting issues with the sound. The sound came out loud and clear, so that suggests that maybe his sound issues are related to the analog board rather than the logic board. However, what I did want to do with these is these are ones he's recapped himself. I want to just look out for anything that might be an issue. They'll probably find this person at a glance when I look at these. Sort of just by eye, the joints look pretty good. This guy has done plenty of his own recapping, so I think it's probably fine. But we just want to go in and see if there's anything glaring, anything we might look at and say, oh, that could be a problem. Okay, so I'm just going to have a quick check. I've been skimming the chat. I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything important. If anyone has asked me a question and I haven't answered it, please feel free to ask it again. That does happen. I do skip sometimes. Why did Apps Korea on the 68,000 run at proper speed but way too fast on Power PCs? Danny, can you give me an example of an app like that? I mean, most of those sort of apps should kind of, if someone's programming an app properly, they should be, if we're talking about games and things like that, they should be designed to run based on the internal clock rather than just running at the maximum speed. I'm not aware of any apps that did that when you had them running on a 6800 they were running normally, and then you put them onto a Power PC and they ran too fast to use or something like that. I haven't had any examples of that, but they may well be out there. Okay, so wrap up your question in a super chat. See, I don't think of saying things like that. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. All right, so jumping across to the microscope, as we have done many times before. Let's have a look. I can see a little bit of flux still on the board here, but it's not too bad. These joints aren't too bad. A little bit lumpy, but really nothing too bad at all. A little bit of a wobble there. Wobble, but that's okay. So really, I mean, these, apart from everything else, I mean, everything looks pretty good. Ooh, solder ball. Solder ball. That's one of the reasons why it's good to clean the board afterwards, because you do end up with solder balls, and solder balls are not something you want bouncing around on your board. Let's have a look here. This is a little bit uglier, and we've got a nice big solder ball here. Like that, sitting right on top of that via there. So these are 100s. Let's just check the... that's fine. That's fine. When you incidentally, this has been recapped. It's been recapped with surface mount electrolytic. They haven't used tantalums like I generally use, which is fine. If people want to preserve the historical appearance of a computer, they would rather use electrolytics. Generally, the surface mount electrolytics that are made today will last longer than the ones that were put on in the day. So if you're someone who's sort of saying, oh, why would you put electrolytics back on? You know, so you've got two factors. The first factor is that that people do like them to look original, and the other is the fact that they the modern electrolytics aren't going to necessarily leak as quickly as the other ones. So I'm going to stick my wedding ring back on, and I'm going to stick my watch back on. I don't have my hands in the guts of a compact Mac anymore, so we can dispense with that that stuff. And because the other thing is that there are alternatives to surface mount electrolytics. You can actually put in polymer capacitors. So they're ones that instead of using a liquid electrolyte, they use it's a powdered polymer, and they don't leak. And of course, that's what's being put in a lot of modern components these days. They're more expensive, but you can go down that path, again, if you wanted to try and preserve the original appearance as much as possible. So, anyhow, let's move on. What's going on? I think these manufacturers will identify themselves and say, no. I can't remember. Only at present, I presume the game OS adjusted clock speed. Yeah, so as I say, I haven't actually had that happen. Okay, we've got... I mean, this is sort of, let this be a kind of a suggestion. If you are going to be doing soldering, do check and make sure you haven't left solder balls all around like this, because it is very dangerous. All it takes is for one of those little solder balls to start bouncing around inside, create an accidental bridge. I mean, if you imagine one of those little solder balls just landed right in the middle of one of these two pins here of the CPU, would not be good. Right. So, but essentially, the soldering itself, I don't see an issue. I don't see anything that looks like a damaged trace or anything like that. If we were having issues with the sound, we would expect it to be in this region here, because that is our sound chip. But even just looking around the pins there, I would be very surprised if there was any problem with that. Now, this doesn't look too crash hot. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to zoom in here. Zoom. Now, it could just be me. That doesn't look like it's making proper contact. Oh, no, it is. It is. It's there. It's sitting a little high, a little proud, but that is actually making contact on the left-hand side there. So that's okay. Just going to give it a little nudge, make sure it doesn't just come up. No, it looks like it's soldered on. So that's good. 47, that's all good. Hunting around, looking for stuff. Here's a nice big empty socket to make us feel bad about not having a floating point unit in there. There's a little guy here. Let me just adjust my... Oh, actually, I shouldn't be doing that. Let me bring that up there like that so that's in focus, and then I'll play with my focus. There we go. All right. Okay, so obviously we've got a little bit of corrosion here, but I wouldn't expect that to cause any sort of problem with this board whatsoever. It's just on the surface. It's not impacting on any of the conductivity there. We've got this little guy here again. You know, fairly big solder blobs, but you know what? I really don't have an issue with the recapping on this that much, apart from all the little solder balls that are floating around. That's not the finest joint I've ever seen, but again, I believe it's making contact. Yep, it is. 47. If you're looking for a recapping guide for one of these, again, that all use this 820-0368A board, on my Recapper Mac website, you'll find there is a recapping guide for a Color Classic 2. Same recapping, same caps. So you know that you can just use that one guide for these LC520 and 550 as well. Sir, can you help me? My laptop is not working. Well, maybe not. There's a lot of grey area in that question, so probably not would be my first thought, because it's not really that much of my area. I mean, you know, there are some issues that I can sometimes help with, but we'll see. Okay. Oh, thank you, Jay, for putting that up there. So, yeah, on the Recapper Mac website, you find a menu item called Resources, and then in that, if you would go down to Color Classic 2, you would find a recapping guide for this board. So we've got that, and the little solder ball, and my tweezers don't meet in the middle. Okay. Now that's interesting. That looks like solder paste to me. So that is solder paste. So if anyone's not sure what solder paste is, it is paste that is kind of a mix of solder and flux, little tiny weeny little balls of solder like that, and flux, and they're generally used. You use them with kind of stencils. What you would do is you would have a stencil over a board, you would solder paste it, then you put the component on, then you apply heat, and the solder paste melts. It's not the way I would do this at all, but you know, this is it here. I've got some here. Solder paste. This is Chip Quick brand. If anyone has issue with Chip Quick, feel free to jump in and say, I hate Chip Quick. I'm just going to show you what it does, assuming this isn't completely blocked up, which it could well be. So I'm just going to squeeze some of this out. No, I'm not. I'll take this off. There we go. I'm going to squeeze some of this out. Okay, there, my friends, is some solder paste. Looking delicious. I'm going to have to move this microscope to see it. And there, because I've kind of plonked it in a really bad spot there. Alright. Okay, so when you zoom into this, you'll see it's lots of tiny weeny little bits of solder, balls of solder that are suspended in this kind of fluxy goo. And then we can get, I'll just zoom out a little bit here so we can see that, and get some hot air, and I'll apply it to this. This is currently, it's just heating up now. We are talking about 425 degrees Celsius. And we're just going to apply that there. And eventually, well, what we'll see, assuming it doesn't completely leave, get blown away. Come on, don't get blown away. Yeah, it was just happening. It was just happening. Just going to move it back. There we go. Turns into a solder ball just like that. Let's get the other one that ran away. Don't you run away. Oh, no, too much air, sorry. But anyhow, you can see basically what solder paste does. It's lots of little teeny weeny little bits of solder that you can then squeeze into locations. And where you might use those is with a BGA chip, ball grid array chip, and use these stencils. This is a monstrous stencil. Look at the size of that one. And what these are, just lots of tiny little holes like this. And then you can, and they come in different pitches, the holes different size and different distances apart like that. and you can then squeeze your solder paste through that to create little solder balls on your BGA chip. So Rossman has certainly done plenty of those in his videos. I've done a few myself. Yeah, it's BGA chips are something off modern computers. You don't see BGAs on these old vintage ones. On the old ones, you see all the pins around the outside. The BGAs are where you actually have the solder balls underneath, and they make contact on the board. I'll just grab an old board here, and I'll show you. This is a spot where a BGA used to live. Wrong button. I keep doing that. This is where a BGA used to live. You can see that's where the chip would sit. And let me see if I can just grab one on here. There'll be one somewhere. I can just show you. Oh, there's one. That is what's referred to as an SMC, or a system management controller on a Macintosh. And that is a classic example of a BGA chip. And I'm going to whip it off with a little bit of hot air, and I'll just show you what it looks like. Sorry, I really have got sidetracked here, haven't I? I can just see people just going, my God, why is he showing me this? I have zero interest in a BGA chip. But anyhow, I just wanted to show, because the main reason I'm showing you this is because it looked to me like that capacitor had been put on using solder paste, and it's generally not what I would do. Anyone who's seen my recapping will know the way I basically do them, and I usually I get the pad clean, and then I put the component on, and then I solder it from either side with just a bit of solder and some flux. I generally don't use solder paste, but a lot of people do use solder paste, so I like to use it, but it's certainly not what I would be doing. It's not coming off, is it? I've got a sneaking suspicion the heating element in my hot air station might be losing some of its oomph, because this is sort of something which I really would not expect take this long. So it might be time for me to replace the heating element in my quick. It's starting to wobble, but I didn't add any flux to this at all. Which, of course, is stupid on me, but, there we go. One VGA chip. And so we can have a look at this. Like that. And there we have all those little balls. And so if I was wanting to replace those little solder balls, I would use a stencil, apply it over top of that, and then I would use some solder paste. And then I would use some hot air that would create nice new little solder balls. So there we go. It was a nice little sidetrack. Those new caps, 230 degrees plus usually required for paste. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, maybe. Those caps don't look damaged, so they look. Apart from obviously the melty bit around the bottom, I think they'll be all right. But anyhow, so all I'm really looking for at the moment is any evidence that we might have what's that? Look, anything obvious, immediately obvious, and apart from the, there's a slightly sus joint on that one there, and the fact that we have a few solder balls floating around. As far as I can see, everything does appear to be okay. So there's nothing here, nothing really glaring that I would say is a big issue with this one. Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of the fact that we've got little bits of solder paste around that one. I would certainly clean that up. I'd probably drop this in the ultrasonic cleaner before I did any really major testing. Let's just have a quick look on the other side of the board. Generally what I'm looking for with that is whether anything has been accidentally knocked off. And just at a glance, I don't see any gaps. If you're ever looking for gaps, where something might have been knocked off, when you look at something like this R78 here, this is intentionally left empty. and you know it's intentionally left empty. Well, there are kind of two signs on this that it's been intentionally left empty. First of all, you can still see the component adhesive here. So if that had been knocked off, that would look, the component adhesive wouldn't be a little mound like that. It would sort of look quite different. But the other is the fact that these are little mounds of solder. When a component has been knocked off, it looks quite different. It has a, you know, the actual solder pads here are usually kind of flat and dull because you reveal that sort of solder underneath it. So, you know, with these, I'm just generally looking if something has been knocked off. That does sometimes happen. But, you know, this doesn't look too bad. We can have a look at this one. And this is an interesting one because the guy who recapped it, obviously, when he did this one, didn't have... let me just focus. He didn't have surface mount electrolytic for this particular size. This is 107, that's 10? Or is it 100? 100 microfarad, 6.3 volt, I think. That sounds about right. 100 microfarad, 6.3 volt. Stripe on the positive side, that's all good. So they're pretty good. They're actually, those joints look quite nice, actually. And they don't look too bad either. It's been done a while ago, by the looks of it. Nah, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, we got a little bit too much solder here, but, you know, as I sort of have said so many times, you know, I'm not one of those people that looks at other people's soldering work and goes, oh, look at how bad that is. You know, it's like, you do this stuff, you try it, you get better at it. It's as simple as that. I mean, you know, your first or second recapping or even, you know, fourth or fifth is never going to be, you know, absolutely perfect. It takes a lot of practice. And I just encourage people to practice, to do this and get good at it. These traces here don't look as crash hot, and this looks like we've got some flux above here, so someone's had a bit of a play around with that. So these traces, and we've actually got some exposed copper here, which we probably need to coat that, otherwise that's likely to corrode in the future. But this sound chip looks like it has been perhaps taken off and put back on again. With looking at the solder on the side here, I don't think I did it. I mean, this certainly isn't my recapping, yeah. So, but anyhow, I happen to know with this one works anyway. So all I'm really doing is doing a little quick check over that one there, but that looks okay. So in terms of this other one here, the 550, which apparently does have some problems. What I guess the next step is I would maybe just tidy up some of these joints, you know, go over and just check and make sure that everything's been put on properly. Give it a good ultrasonic clean. Make sure we don't have any more of these little floaty bits of solder on the board because they're never particularly good. Obviously, as I say, we've got this corrosion here as well. I'll check. I don't know what the code is on this, but I'll check the code to make sure it is the right size. The cap, I mean, this one 47C. I know that's 47 microfarad, but this one it's 10C. So this one I think is meant to be a, yeah, that sounds right. 10 microfarad, 16 volt. That sounds about right. So yeah, that one's okay. It's 10 microfarad, 16 volt, I think. Let me just double check again. Yeah, that is right. That is right. Definitely. Okay, let's have a be right back. Okay, sorry, I've just been absolutely not looking at the chat at all, so my apologies. Okay, flux. That's going to highlight damage to those new. Oh yeah, I did read some of these. You might be right, Rest. That chip on the 23 board took forever to come off too, remember. Yeah, that's right. Those packages designed to take that amount of heat. These packages, these surface mount electrolytics are definitely not designed to use hot air. And I can tell you why. Because this little base on the bottom is plastic. And so you hit this with hot air, that thing just melts. So they're definitely not designed to be put on with hot air. There's no doubt about that. Okay. All right. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I was hoping this one would have some sort of glaring issue that we could just look at and fix. but it doesn't. So unfortunately, that is that idea gone. That's sort of taken some of the interest away, and I do apologise. That joint in there doesn't look too crash-like, does it? I'm just going to give this a wiggle. Yeah, no, it's soldered on, but it just doesn't look too good. When you can see the actual pin sticking out like that with no sort of solder on it, I mean, it's fine if it's flush, but it's not sitting flush on the board. I can go through with a multimeter and check to see if I've got any bridges or anything like that, but generally with these, I would be making sure they were sitting right flush on the board before I soldered them on. Okay, well that one's a little bit dull then, and I apologise for that. It's not going to. I was hoping there would be something exciting to do, but there was nothing exciting to do on that one. So I think what I will probably do at this stage is wrap up the stream. The only other things that I was talking about before was the old Quadra 700, which I have been working on for some time now. So just to do a little quick recap of the recap. Now there's no recapping on this one, so just a quick little recap on this one. This is the Quadra 700, which I keep going to the wrong camera, which has had some rather nasty battery leakage. Now this is an area where there is not actually meant to be a component there, so that doesn't really matter. But you know, you can see here where these RAM chips are, we've got some pretty bad sort of corrosion going on around here, so there's a fair bit of work to do there. I've removed and replaced a few of these, but I probably should remove and replace the rest of them as well. And then we've got some, you know, sort of some trace damage going along. You know, where you're really looking for it in these vias, you need to make sure that the copper around the outside, this the copper of this top part here, is making contact with a little metal tube going through the middle of the via there. Now that one looks okay. I know, it doesn't look okay. It looks awful, but I think that one is making contact. We've got things like this, which is a very clear break in the trace there, but this is going to a pin that doesn't have a component on it, so it's really not that important. I just need to make sure that some of these traces that are coming out, whether they are supposed to make contact with something else. You know, for instance, this one goes through this. This doesn't just go to this pad here; it goes through to this via. So it is possible that this trace here is supposed to be connected something through that via there. And so that's going to I'm probably going to have to go through and repair those. But what the most important thing with this board now is the fact that this is not my board. This belongs to a customer. I am essentially going to say to them that I think this board is too much work to repair. That it's something that you could potentially look at as a kind of a hobby and then go and repair, do a little bit here and a little bit there. But then we're talking about someone sending it to me as a repairer, charging for the work that I do. I think this computer is way too much work to justify the cost of repairing it. This has been through the ultrasonic cleaner, so this is the better version. If you hadn't seen it before. So yeah, you know, I mean, it's kind of disappointing. You know, I get that, but I just have to look at this from a practicality point of view. I can't just sit there and spend hours and hours and hours on it and not charge for it, and I can't really spend hours and hours and hours on it and charge for it. It's just going to end up too expensive. So this one here, I'm going to basically go back to the client and say, "Oops, it's a no-go. What do you want to do?" He can sell it to me for parts, or he can keep it himself for parts, or he might want to have a crack at repairing it, but I suspect he probably won't. We'll see. But anyway, I'm going to see what he wants to do. But you know, I mean, I'm not trying to trick him out of this board when I say it's only for parts. If you've watched any of my streams before, you'll see that I have spent a huge amount of time on this. I've done little repairs such as this one here, where I've placed these new components on and glued them onto the board because all the traces are gone, and then created my own little traces and stuff there. those sorts of repairs, you know, they take a long time, and so yeah, it's a shame. I mean, we all love, or most of us, I think, love the Quadra 700. I think it's a very important part of Apple's history. I would love to have a Quadra 700 one day, but this one, you know, I don't think this one is going to have much of a chance in the future. The only other project that I thought I would just quickly mention is this one here. I talked about this on Mac Yak very briefly yesterday for anyone who watched it. This is a Quadra 900 board. As you can see, it is freaking massive. I'm open to suggestions with this one. I'm really curious because I haven't done much of this before, but I'm thinking about making a Franken Mac. And what that basically means is I'm going to use this original Mac board, and I don't have a case for this. I don't have a power supply. I don't have CD-ROM drive, floppy drive, nothing. I'm thinking about putting this into a different case and making a Quadra 900 with my own case. Now, I'm open to suggestions because I don't know many cases that can fit a board that big. I might be able to get some old cases from somewhere, but you know, I mean, where am I? I don't want to, you know, I don't want the thing to be ridiculously huge, but I mean, I can't just put that into a modern like ATX case. I mean, it's just not going to fit. So anyhow, if anyone has any suggestions about what sort of case I can put this in, I would be very interested to know. One thing I will do very, very quickly here, this will be the last thing I do on this stream, is I'm going to show you where the some of the battery. So this suffered from battery leakage, but the damage is not bad. It's nowhere near as bad as that 700 that I just showed. So I'm just going to show you this quickly and show you where some of the damage is. We've got some on this RAM slot here. You can see there. See the pretty ugly sort of corrosion going on there. So one of the first things I'm going to need to do with this as part of the diagnostic process is I'm going to need to take this RAM sim off. And that's a really important thing because it's got traces running underneath it. You can see those traces there, and I would think that there's a good chance that they might actually be damaged inside. So you know, a little bit of trace rot in there. So G5 case. I don't have a G5 case. I mean, I've got a G5 case, but it's got a working G5 in it, and that's not going to change. So make a wood case. It's so tempting, actually. You know, I like working with wood, so yeah. But imagine what it would look like. Right, so what I'm going to do here, I'm quickly going to demonstrate my little soldery suckery thingy. This isn't on, which is why I'm handling the hot end. Don't you love those stock photos when they have people holding soldering irons like this? You know, and they're doing soldering with the, you know, in their lab coats and stuff, and they're soldering like that. I'm sure we've all seen them. There are probably about 4 or 5 examples of those out there in stock photo libraries. They always crack me up when you see it. Anyhow, fancy solder sucker. With the, yeah, there we go. So this has different sized little ends on them. I'm just going to zoom in here. Zoom, 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 zoom. And you can see they have little holes on the end, and they have different size holes. This one, the pins are quite small, so I'm going to use this smaller sized end thingy. They're going onto the sucker. So this just goes on there like that, and then this goes over the top, and we'll screw that on, and then we'll switch it on. Now, I talked about this before. This particular device. This is a, was it Rhino brand or Hippo? I can't remember. A cheapie, and I was going to do a bit of a review on it. Now, so far it's been going quite well, but when I switch it on, it makes that noise. Can you hear that? Kind of weird buzzing noise. Now, that doesn't sound ideal, does it? Now, if I press the trigger, it's going, oh, it stopped. There we go. It stopped all by itself. It didn't need to do anything. I was going to say, when I press the trigger, that noise generally goes away, but it went away all by itself. So I, may need to investigate it, see if there's something inside that's not good. I've just got myself totally tangled up here. I've got my multimeter wrapped up in the cables of the solder sucker. So, sucker! Come on. Come on. There we go. Alright, so This is a job that I would not take on. I have done it before without a solder sucker, and I never ever want to do it again. And that is that I need to remove the pins for this. So on here, I need to remove these 2 rows of pins here, right along there and there, in order to take that out, that RAM holder thingy out. So let's just see if I can set this up in a way where I might be able to zoom a little bit and you can actually see it. Which ones were it again? Was those 2? Yeah, those 2. Those 2 rows there. So let's see how telephoto I can get in here without, well, I can still see them. Okay. Okay, see you, Fizzbin. Sorry, you're probably already gone. Bye. Okay. All right. So, okay. So hang on. There was something here. It very well find in a Mac Pro or G5 case. Mac Pro. Yeah. Might be able to get an old Mac Pro case from somewhere, I suppose. I'd also rather it wasn't as heavy as a Mac Pro or a G5. I mean, that's such a big, heavy case. Right, so let's see if we can get some of these out. This is something I'd really ideally like to do in fast motion. Yeah. Okay. Okay. What we're going to have to do, this could end up just getting... I'm going to start this, and if I just decide that this is way too boring, I'm going to stop it, and then I'll sign off, and then we'll have a look at this at a later date. What I need to do here, I need to get, obviously, the solder out from here. Look at that, we've got some nice corrosion going on there. So I need to get these 2 rows desoldered. And when you have corrosion like that, it's not going to desolder very well. So I'm going to put some flux on this. Oh God, I think this thing's nearly empty. Come on. Ah, God, I think I'm going to have to retire this one. Yep, I'm going to have to retire it. That's it, guys. That's the end of that one. It's time for a new one. This is the flux changeover. Now, the big problem when you get a new one is you often squeeze out the flux, and then it keeps squeezing out when you put it down, like that. Right. Let's just... that I'm just going to change. I've still got my solder tip from when I was working on a MacBook Pro 15-inch. Now I'm going to return to my vintage Mac soldering tip. Oops. There we go. Oh, sorry, I've missed some chat here. Let's go to critical would be easiest and cheapest. I'm pretty sure there's low-cost cutting servers out there. Yeah. Is the camera still locked to the CRT frequency? Image seems a bit dark still. It is. I just recapped my LC3's power supply. When testing the voltages outside of the Mac, it made a clicking noise. That's normal. It ramps down when you turn it off again in the machine, though it's silent. All good. Yeah, so it is very common with those power supplies that when they're not connected to the board, that they click. So you need to connect it to the board to test it properly. So just a second while I change the camera settings here in case I go back to it. There we go. All right. All right, so it should be a little bit brighter now if I do a little bit of this. Nicer, yes. Okay. So let's see if I can, using some new solder and some flux, make this pin look nice again. Okay. Plenty of heat. There's some crusty stuff coming off, but it's really not taking on new solder. I was hoping that it would eventually push the old stuff out. So this one is definitely giving me some grief. I'm not too concerned about the slot itself because it's going to have to be replaced. Yeah, bent pins. Let's bend it back. I may end up having to get a bit nasty with this one. I'm kind of bending it as I go because I'm trying to just try and release the gunky solder around it. But anyhow, I'll probably leave that one till last because I might be able to get that, I might be able to just give that a push. So it probably makes sense with some of these to put a bit of new solder on them. I think it'll just make it easier to then remove the solder. Jeez, that's a big blob there. Okay. It always seems, I've mentioned this so many times in my streams, it just seems so counterintuitive to add solder to something that you want to remove solder on. But it works. When you have a larger blob of solder there and you're applying heat to it, like with the hot air station or whatever, or a solder sucker, they generally just heat more efficiently if there's kind of more new solder on there. Just bending that up will just make it life easier for me. They obviously bent these down when they were putting them on. Yep, there goes the pin. Not at all concerned about that because, as I say, I'm just getting rid of that. Getting rid of the whole RAM slot. I've got spares from other computers, which I have already taken off, as a matter of fact. I just need to solder them on there. Right. But yeah, they basically, when they were putting these RAM sims on, they bent those pins to hold the slot in place while they soldered it on. So, but I don't want them bent, so that's why I'm unbending them as I go. Okay. This kind of might seem like an unnecessary step, but having done these before, I know that if you do this, it just does make that removal process a lot easier. Well, and then we go out of focus. And as I say, I'll get this off. That'll be the last thing. I'll then sign off, and then people can go about their evenings or days, depending on where they are. For those who have actually stayed on, I thank you. I am not offended if you have left already. Okay, so let's jump back to this camera here. And we are going to be desoldering her. Let's do this. So we're just going to, I'm going to need my specs. Here we go. My glasses, got to be able to see what I'm doing. And let's begin. So this is the really bad one. We're probably going to leave that one. Going to melt that. These are all coming out beautifully, I might add. Adding that little bit of extra solder before was definitely a good move. So when I'm doing this, I'm basically looking to make sure that that solder is molten before I start sucking. Sometimes I get the timing wrong and I don't do it quite right. And when I feel that that solder is molten, I then apply the suckerage. And for anyone who's ever had to do this with a manual solder sucker or with a bit of solder wick, watching this and the speed at which I can do this,
you can definitely see the advantage in having something like this, having a device like this. I had a Macintosh 2 SI. I've got a video on it in my channel where there was some battery leakage, and I got the thing so that it would chime, it would boot, start up, but it just kept on crashing. And it turned out that there was a broken trace underneath one of the RAM slots, and I had to take that RAM slot off, and I did it with solder wick, and it was one of the most horrendous jobs I've ever done. It was not fun. It was painful.
Checking chat. Okay, thank you, GT, for hanging on. Appreciate that. And as I was saying this morning, I was thinking of all the things I learned from your streams and not following any of them. Yeah, that happens. That happens. I've watched a few people do that. Yes, I would wait a few seconds, wait until it melts right through. Yes, that's very true. I'm in a situation here where I'm very keen to get this done as quick as possible, given the fact that I am actually live streaming something here which is extremely repetitive. But then there's also part of me that says I'd really like to get this done right the first time. I can see a couple that haven't cleared out completely. Well, those ones I'll just add a little bit of extra solder. See, that one I went too fast. Just get the timing wrong sometimes. When I got this device, the very first thing I did was remove a RAM slot. Given that it was something that I'd had done in the past that had given me so much grief. Right, let's go in and have a look and see what we can see with the microscope. See how many of these we potentially have to get a bit more solder onto. I broke the pin off that one by the looks of it. Oh no, it's there. It's just straight up. So that one, this one here, so this board is so big. It is an absolute pain to work with. Put some more solder on that. Most of these don't look too bad. Maybe that one. Maybe that one. That's the one where I actually busted a pin. There's one. It's probably off camera. But once again, this stupid massive board. That one didn't do well at all. Alright. Let's try it again and then we'll see what we can. Hopefully that'll be it. Hopefully we'll be able to get it out after that. Whoopsie. We've solder tool filters. Flux fumes make them go yellow and hard. Yeah, this hasn't had that much done, so this one I think is still fairly good. I did actually check it 2 days ago, I think. So I'm fairly confident this one is still okay.
This last one's still being a cow. I'll put that down there. This one right here. Come on. Come on. Yeah, I got it. Okay, so I think we're all fairly good there. Oh, there's one. Definitely feels like it's not sucking as well now, so there's probably a fair bit of solder gunked up in there, but that's okay. I think we've probably got enough. Just how fierce will I be with this? Once again, I'm really not at all concerned about the slot itself, but I don't want to damage the board, so. But we definitely appear to be still fairly well stuck in there, so I'm just going to get under this with the scope again. But if I don't get this working soon, I will abandon it. Some of these, they just stick to the sides. I can just, oh, come on, clean. Okay, it's okay. That's still joined a little bit. But yeah, that's okay. That's okay. That one's. I mean, most of these are looking pretty clear, apart from obviously this one here, but I think that's just a rusted lump. It's probably not going to be an issue. And the thing is that, oh, that one and that one. The thing is that these if you've only got a little tiny bit hanging on from several of the pins, they actually hold on really well. This has got corrosion in it, because it's not solder I'm looking at in here. It's brown gunge. So once again, we're just going to hit this with a bit of flux. Flux, come on, flux me. And we're just going to try and push some of that scunge out. I just want to replace all that yucky old stuff with nice new solder. Yeah. I'm definitely displacing some of it. Let's see how we go. My guess is that right on the other side of that one that I've been playing with there's probably some really bad corrosion there. And that's why that one looks so bad. I'm probably just going to need to be forceful with it. Oh, that's feeling like it's giving. So I'm just pushing these little plastic things. The end of the RAM slot has little plastic things that put in and hold it in the correct position. Hey,
off it comes with a little combination of skill and brute force. Okay, let's have a look. Let's see how bad things are under here. And then that will be it. I will then sign off. So, that was the one that was giving me grief before. As you can see, there's a lot of sort of built-up gunk in there. And I would be... Not at all... That actually looks like that might even be a break in the trace there. I've got to kind of... Oh, I've just broken my needle. Hate it when that happens. I want to try and get rid of all this crusty stuff out of here. And as I say, I think there might even be a little bit of trace repair that needs to... Oh! I've cut myself. I've turned it into a Retke mod stream. And I did the worst thing you could possibly do. I put my finger in my mouth when I've been touching solder and stuff. Let that be a lesson to you, kiddies. Don't do what I just did. Yeah, there is a definite break here. Right there. Got a... Oh, looking at the microscope. Okay, so... Only took me, half an hour to figure that out. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got trace damage here, and here, and here. And that will need to be fixed up because there's definitely corrosion going through there. So there we go. I'm glad I took that off. It was a pain in the neck, but it did need to be done. Otherwise, that RAM slot would not work. I've got to try and get rid of all this gunge out of here. Let's just have a quick inspection of the other areas of it here. Not looking too bad. It's the plastic stuff there. That's okay, that's okay. Now we're looking here. Yep, that definitely got some damage going on there. I would look at replacing that whole trace along there. And a few little spots there. Just looking to see if I've got clear copper all the way. Definitely some work to be done there. And oh, it's not looking too crash hot here either. Yeah, look at that. Look at those brakes. It's a little bit bright, sorry about that, but if I zoom into that, you'll see that we've definitely got broken copper going on there. Huge break in the copper there and there. So that's all going to need to be replaced. It looks like we're traveling along here as well. So there's going to be, probably, yeah, completely gone there. Completely and totally eaten through. I would say at least a dozen by the looks of these ones here. All these ones with these little spots on them. Those little spots are just little flecks of kind of battery goo. People make the mistake of saying acid. It's not actually. It's an alkaline. But the alkaline from the battery landing on there and causing that corrosion. So I'm glad I took that off because there's absolutely no way that this would have worked properly with it on. So let's just have a quick look here. Change camera, yes, thank you. I realise that. Always threaten it with defenestration. Yes, I know. For anyone who's not sure what defenestration is, it is throwing something out a window. Isn't it great we have a word in the English language to describe throwing something out a window? Okay. Yeah, microscope camera, please. I'm so sorry I didn't spot that sooner. That must have been so frustrating watching that while I was doing it and you not being able to see it. So, I've done something enough to get to like. Okay, already liked, already subbed. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Get an official microscope glossary definition on the difference between gunge and scunge. It's a very good question. Let's see if I can try and figure that one out. Gunge? Gunge I tend to think is a little bit more liquid. Gunge I would consider something that's like it's not very it's not very savory. It doesn't look very nice, but it is kind of more liquid. So gunge might be the stuff you find down I don't know, in the S bend of your sink or something like that. The scunge I tend to think is a drier, so I think this is sort of a scunge, this stuff here. I'm making this stuff up as I go along, so may as well. What was this damage from? This damage was from a leaky battery. If we have a look here, you can actually see that's one of the pins from the battery. I'm going to have to replace the battery, put it on there, but the damage that it caused was relatively minimal. It didn't actually do anything like what it did to that Quadra 700. It has damaged two battery holders. Oh, sorry, not battery holder. Two RAM slot holder thingies. These guys. I've got some spares of these, which I can use as replacements. I've got quite a few boards where these are perfectly fine. I just need to take them off and then replace them. And that was about it. So we've seen the trace damage there, which we wouldn't have seen without taking that off. Everything else seems to be fairly well intact. So this is one of the reasons why I'm feeling fairly confident I'll be able to get this one working. But of course, I'm not even going to bother until I get those traces repaired and get that RAM slot back on. That RAM slot's going to end up having to sit a little proud, because I'm not going to be able to get that all the way down, because it's going to have all those trace repairs under it. It's going to be a bit of a pain. I might do those trace repairs in another stream. I'll get the other RAM slot off, and then we can look at doing those trace repairs, and then I'll put it all back together, and then in the meantime, I'm going to be making a power supply for it, and then we can see if we can get started up. Won't that be fun? Yes, well, maybe. Okay, so, right. I'll take gunge as like earwax, tar, or flux, and scunge is like calcification, mineralization, or rust. That is such an eloquent way of describing exactly what I was doing with, really, really lengthy, boring words. So thank you for that, Dana. It's greatly appreciated. I think that did a wonderful job. You did a wonderful job saying what I wanted to say. Right, I'd look into conductive ink or adhesive trace repair. I will be doing neither of those. So this is the way I will be doing it, with my normal trace repair method, and I think it will be fine. So I can definitely understand the appeal of doing it with, sort of doing it with the adhesive paint type stuff, which I have some up here, or by doing it with a flat sort of trace repair rather than using a little bit of wire. But I'm confident that the little fraction of a millimeter height addition that I get will still be fine, and I'll be confident with the trace repairs. So that's probably how I'm going to do it. So anyhow, look, thank you everyone for watching. I have now been running for, what is it, 2.5 hours or something. Sorry, folks, that's a really long time. Thank you for those who held on. Thanks for those who stayed for the duration. Thank you very much for the people who gave me a super chat. It's greatly appreciated. It makes me feel good, like I'm providing some content that people are enjoying. My apologies if I haven't given anyone an adequate plug during this stream, but hopefully I have mentioned everyone that should be mentioned. Don't forget that on MacYak we have a giveaway at the moment, so jump onto MacYak episode 69 and find out how to enter that giveaway. So thank you everyone for watching. I know it was a little bit bitsy, it was a little bit of a mess, there were lots of little things here and there, and I did chat a lot about nonsense, but I do appreciate everyone watching and staying on for the duration. So thanks guys, and I will see you at the next stream, where I will be doing something equally inane. So thank you everyone, and see you at the next one. Bye now.